Nice! Never let it be said we don't show bass players any love on this channel. I'm with Charles Berthoud. I want to say that in a French way. Would that be appropriate?
That would be very appropriate.
Is there?
Yeah.
See, I've got a little bit of French going back a couple of generations in my. So tell us, where does that come from then?
So yeah, my family a long time ago, like 200, 300 years ago, was originally from France, and then something happened, I don't know exactly what, but they kind of moved to England like 150-ish years ago, something like that. And so I've got some relatives still in Switzerland, actually.
Okay, like the French-speaking part or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of where Berthoud comes from, and I'm impressed that you managed to pronounce it correctly, because most people on the first attempt do not get it right.
My grand's maiden name was Van der Weg, which is spelt difficultly as well. So I'm used to seeing words and going, how would a French person say that word? But anyway, look, it's great to meet you. We are in sunny California at the Schecter facility here, where they make all the custom shop stuff and distribute the wide range. And it's been pretty cool. They've invited some artists down while we're here, Charles being one of them, to talk about life, the universe, and everything Schecter.
Yeah.
But before we do that, tell us about yourself and your sort of bass playing. I mean, we chatted a little bit before, so let's start with the kind of the bass players that you grew up listening to and inspired you.
Yeah, I mean, it started off, I would say, Cliff Burton was one of my biggest influences. And then, because at that point I was actually obsessed with Metallica. I've probably seen them live like 6 or 7 times, I would say, and most of that was when I was like between 11 and 18.
Yeah.
And then kind of after Cliff Burton, my next big influence was Flea. So I learned a lot of slap bass, like Higher Ground and Coffee Shop and all of these like iconic slap bass lines and solos. And then after that, it was probably Victor Wooten was the big one. A big moment in my life, a big like epiphany was when I saw Victor play Amazing Grace. There's like this live video of him doing that. And it was the first time I'd seen a bassist do a solo where they played the melody, the rhythm, the harmony, everything all at once. And it was just so inspiring. I always thought bass, like even bass solos, was just gonna be like a single line, just playing crazy stuff. But this one was such a great musical arrangement that it made me realize there's so much more to bass that I haven't even tapped into at all. And yeah, so those 3 I would say are kind of like my biggest
It's
ones.
quite an eclectic in their own right, each being an amazing bass player.
Yeah.
I could certainly hear the Flea kind of influence in that beginning section that you did.
Yeah.
But all from quite different musical genres and backgrounds.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that you've been able to draw on? Because I mean, when we were talking beforehand, there was another 4 or 5 names that you mentioned, and all again, quite an eclectic range of genres of music.
Yeah.
And do you think that sort of helped go into this sort of melting pot of influencing what you're doing now?
Definitely. I mean, I've always liked a lot of different genres of music. Like, I'm kind of one of those guys who says, I like good music. Like, it's like, I don't necessarily care what genre it is, as long as it's good and I can tell that the artists are like really expressing themselves and being honest and trying their best to just put out great stuff. It's like, that stuff always resonates with me, kind of regardless of genre. And I personally love playing a lot of different styles. Like, I can't ever see myself being boxed into one genre. So I think having this wide range of influences from a lot of different styles of music has definitely helped me to kind of fulfill my passion of playing whatever style I want.
Who's your kind of favorite? I think with you know, there's two, loosely speaking, two kinds of bass player. There's the bass player that sits and feels like it's sitting in the engine room of the track, and their job is to groove and drive the track forward. And then you've got bass players that want to be much more front and center about perhaps the melodic lines within the music.
Yeah.
Do you see, you know, do you have a preference, you know, in terms of the bass player that you might want to be yourself? Or
I mean, people right now only really see me doing like the flashy stuff, you know, being front and center, which is pretty unusual for a bassist. Like 90% of bassists are usually sitting back in the pocket because that's kind of the role of the bassist usually. So I really like, it's not like I love being the center of attention, because I actually don't really like being the center of attention, which you might be surprised to hear. But I just really like doing all the other elements of music, like not just playing the bass line. Like I like arranging music and coming up with melodies. Like I actually love melody more than anything. That's like my favorite element of music. So I like doing all of these different things, and I guess I could do it on other instruments, but I've just put so much time into bass. And I do think genuinely that bass soloing is something that still is not as explored as it could be. People are only really just starting to, a lot of people are only just starting to hear some of these things for the first time. Like bass tapping, I think, is something that obviously has been done for a while, but I think it's still being pushed a lot. And that's something else I really like about doing this, is I feel like there's a lot of room for growth and exploration.
Interesting. It feels to me like the sort of 70s was the sort of the heyday of the bass soloist, you know, all those kind of power jazz bands, Stanley Clarke, Jacko, all that kind of stuff, where you felt they were sort of front and center. Like you say, it sort of feels perhaps, it's terrible now, I'm trying to remember the Richard Bonner that we had on. And again, I wasn't super familiar with his stuff, but one of the brands that he was working with said, "Oh, look, you know, can we get him on Andertons?" And I said, "It was fine." And then he was playing this crazy level, sort of scattered bass line stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think it's kind of, we probably, the bass solo is almost a cliche joke, isn't it? Just like, oh no, here comes the bass solo. But actually done well, I think you're right. There's a real opportunity for the instrument to be a bit more front and center. Yeah,
definitely. And like, I love just being the traditional bassist as well, just playing normal bass lines in a band. Like, it's actually a really nice break sometimes to not have to be thinking about every like part of the arrangement like I currently do most of the time. But yeah, I just think sometimes people decide to put certain things in a box, and sometimes I think bass gets put in this box of like, you must only play the bass line, which, yeah, I mean, if you want to be a session bassist, you should probably play bass lines 99% of the time. But that doesn't mean that...
You could say the same about guitar players with that, though. You know, so all the session guitar players that are making a proper living are the ones that just know the good chords.
Right, especially nowadays that solos are not as big of a thing on guitar. Like back in the 80s, maybe you would be playing more solos, but not quite so much now. And I just think, yeah, bass doesn't deserve to be put into this little box of like bass lines only. Like, it can sound great as a solo instrument too.
Let's go back. So your journey, so obviously grown up in the UK, but at a relatively young age decided to go and study bass in the US, and then you've not gone back since. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, basically, I was in school in England, and I was there until I was 18. And while I was at school, my music teacher told me about this place called Berkeley, and I'd never heard of it. And I didn't know at that time that contemporary music education existed. I assumed that all music education was like classical and maybe jazz if you're like getting really experimental. So he told me about it and just said I should try out the summer program that they have, which is just a 5-week program. And I went on that and my mind was just blown, because I was like, you can do a class in funk and fusion slap bass. Like, I didn't think that was a thing. I didn't think that was possible. And so that just opened my mind up to this whole other world that I didn't know about that I really like. So I was like, okay, I can actually learn this stuff. I don't have to just kind of figure it out by myself. And so Berkeley, yeah, it was an amazing experience. I met really great people there. My bass teacher, I had the same bass teacher throughout all of Berkeley. He was incredibly supportive and really just wanted me to do my own thing. Like, he wasn't the kind of guy who was like, no, you're a bassist, stop doing all this tapping stuff. He loved the fact that I was really passionate about doing something a little bit different. So I loved Berkeley, and then I decided to stick around afterwards. I was doing a bit of touring with some bands, and then I met my wife here, and now just kind of settled down. And yeah, that's kind of just how it ended up.
So when did the YouTube thing sort of start and really kick off?
Well, I started my YouTube channel in 2012. It didn't kick off for quite a while. I was mostly uploading kind of just originals, straight up, no talking, had no clue how to do thumbnails, no clue how to do titles or anything, like play the YouTube game in any way. Yeah, it all kind of kicked off in 2019.
Right.
I did a collab with Davey504.
Yeah.
And he told everyone to go and subscribe to my channel. And
Could you say that about our channel, please, Davey?
Yeah, seriously.
Every YouTuber on the planet going, please, Davey, say something about that.
Yeah. And at that point, he had a lot of power. He was like getting millions of views on every video. Like, this video collab that I did with him got like 4 million views. He told everyone to go and subscribe. I got like 50,000 subscribers overnight, which was crazy because at that point I had like 10,000 subscribers. So I like quintupled or whatever my audience overnight. And that point I realized, like, all right, I guess I'm a YouTuber now. I just decided I've got to like put out videos as much as I could. I was putting out like 2 videos a week, having before that only done like 1 a month. And yeah, it just kind of kept going from there, and it sort of hasn't really stopped. And just want to keep it going, see what happens.
And has the YouTube thing enabled you to promote your own music and the projects that you're doing? Or I'm sort of interested in, do people just want to see the flash stuff, or are they interested in educational stuff? I mean, what will they expect? What can they expect to see on your channel?
On my main channel, it's mostly me playing crazy bass stuff. It could be anything. It could be originals. I've got this series called like The Hardest Song in the World, where I basically just take any song. Usually I find it's funnier if I take like a really easy song and then just completely turn it into something insane. And so yeah, you'll see a lot of crazy bass playing on my main channel. Some funny stuff every now and then. Like, I had a skit called When You Play a Wrong Note in Classical versus Jazz, and in classical, everyone freaks out, and in jazz, everyone's like, yeah, nice, hip.
all my notes are jazz notes.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good excuse to get away with anything.
So how did the conversation with Schecter go then? Because it's, I mean, obviously, I think the Schecter bass range has generally been, you know, one of the sort of less well-known part. That I would imagine if you asked 100 people, maybe not all of them would even realize Schecter did basses, but they've had a few kind of artists that have endorsed their stuff. But did you reach out to them, or did they reach out to you? Were you playing Schecter beforehand, or?
I was playing a bit of Schecter beforehand. Yeah, they reached out to me, and I really liked their stuff already. I'd played the stiletto. I had a stiletto fan fret and a stiletto 6-string and 12. No, actually, I didn't have a 12-string at that point. I had an 8-string, and yeah,
Is the 12 a 4-string but with 3 octaves per, or is it a 6-string with an octave on each?
No, it's a 4-string
with 3. Yeah, 3.
So, and it's, I think, I actually haven't really like looked at it and analyzed it for a bit, but I'm pretty sure it's like, you know, the fundamental, and then 2 strings that are just 1 octave up from that.
Yeah, I suppose otherwise it would. You couldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't.
It's not like 3 octaves per set.
I remember
yeah.
seeing. I remember years ago seeing an alembic bass that did that sort of 12-string idea, and you just end up going like, wow. But I don't think I ever played it. I think I just saw it. So wasn't there an artist that was famous for playing the 12-string?
Doug Pinnick is the one that is actually his signature.
Right.
The one that Schecter have.
Yeah, I think this. I'm going back before then, but I don't know who it would have been. But
yeah,
hey ho. So okay, so they reached out and what did they just say? You know, just would you like some free basses, or were they straight away? Do you want to collaborate on something?
Free basses first. Yeah, so probably got about 5 basses first of all, and actually a couple of guitars as well. So they were very generous. It was very nice. And then I had played them a ton in the videos, just like all of these different Schecters. And one day they just said, do you want to do a signature model? And I was like, yeah, obviously. And we started designing it. And yeah, it took probably like 6 months to a year of kind of going back and forth on design ideas and then getting it into production. And then it went on sale like last November.
Take us through then, just like, you know, what is it about the bass that you sort of perhaps have changed from some of the more traditional basses or the older basses that you've played?
Yeah, I mean, I really like my basses to be as agile as possible. And when I say that, I mean, like, I like to have as few sort of physical hindrances. And so it's got a big, deep cutaway down here, which just, you know, lets me play up here just as comfortably as if I'm playing down here. And actually what helps a lot with that is the through neck, which is contoured specifically to have it just be really nice and comfortable up here too. So that's something that's a little bit different from some of the other models. And then it's got quite a thin neck overall, which just lets me fly around the fingerboard, which is always nice. It's got...
What pickup set is in it? Is that, I'm trying to see the... Oh, it's EMG set in there.
EMG. Yeah, I love EMG. Ever since I saw Victor playing them, I was like, those are the pickups for me. They're just really nice and crisp, but they've also just still got that beefy low end and, you know, the full spectrum of everything. And then, yeah, the blend knob is nice. I usually just have it on 50. And then you got this like... But then if you like roll it back, I use that. So when I roll it back to the bridge pickup, I use that for when I'm tapping in like more of a band setting, and it gets this like more mid sound that cuts through the mix. And then all the way to the neck pickup, it sounds a little more old school.
It almost sounds like a double bass at that point.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
exactly.
It's really deep.
Yeah, you get a nice range of tones with that.
And with a 3-band EQ, I'm guessing that's just a standard kind of EMG preamp.
Yeah, you've got treble here. So you usually have treble and bass on 10, and then mid on like 7. So just like a little bit of a scoop.
Nice. I mean, it's obviously a slightly more compact body size than something like a jazz bass or a P bass.
Yeah.
Did you ever toy with the idea of going something, you know, more traditional like that, or did you just find those basses too big, too unwieldy?
Yeah, I've always liked the slightly like smaller, just more agile feeling basses. The thing I like least about a bass is when it has like a really fat neck. I know some people like that, but I just find it really like slows me down. And yeah, it's actually really funny. I don't own a single Fender bass, which is like, some people think that's crazy.
It's unusual, I guess, to not. And you've never owned a jazz bass or a P bass then?
No, never have. I've played them, but I've never owned one. I should add one to my collection.
No, don't do that. But then you might fall in love with it and just think that'd be the end of a beautiful relationship with Schecter. You mentioned, I think, that obviously it's a 4-string, but you mentioned was there Did you say a 6 and an 8, or did you say a 5 and a 6 that are in the pipeline?
5 and 6 are in the pipeline. Yeah, we're getting prototypes in pretty soon, so hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on some and start making some videos with them. Yeah, can't really give a timeline on when those will be released, but I'm hoping
But
pretty
they'll
soon.
just be the 5 and 6 string variants of this, or
Yes.
you're not going like a totally different bass?
No, it'll be very similar. There'll be different colors. But other than that, it'll just be pretty much the same instrument, just with 5 and then 6 strings. Yeah.
And so 2024 then, what, is it focused on the YouTube thing, or have you got other projects that you're going to try and start focusing on?
Well, yeah, there's going to be a lot of YouTube still. I've got a second channel, which I started like 6 months ago, which is focused on bass lessons. So that's called Bass Camp. So I'm going to be focusing quite a bit on that too. And then the main other thing I'm doing is I'm collabing a lot with this guy, Berthoud, who's an Austrian guitarist. He's pretty big on YouTube, and we're aiming to tour at the start of next year.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, we've got like a few songs finished. We're hoping to have an EP out pretty soon.
And will that just be with just playing to a backing track of drums and stuff, or will it just be the two of you? What's the vibe of that?
Hasn't actually been finalized, the exact sort of setup of everything. I think, yeah, it's definitely going to be the two of us. We're hoping to have drums. So,
But as in a live drummer, you mean just?
oh yeah.
Okay.
No, it'll either be drums with backing track or live drums, but we're hoping for live drums. And then potentially maybe a second guitarist or keys or something like that.
So pretty much a full band though.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, look, man, I mean, good luck with the tuition and good luck with the YouTube thing.
Thank you.
The bass looks cool. It's been lovely to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
It's nice to hear a familiar accent out in the middle of America here, or west coast of America. But yeah, look, it's great. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. And play us out. Play us out with something cool and funky. Very good.